Hey, what's up? Hope everyone's doing all right. So this is week 28. It's Ecclesiastes 1 through Isaiah 9. And so remember, we're breaking up the Bible into 50 different parts, one part a week. And if you do that, you can get through the Bible in 1 year. So you have 50, there's 52 weeks, 52 point something weeks in a year. So if you do one part or one section a week, you get through the Bible in 50 weeks. And so the reading, like I said, is Ecclesiastic 1 through 9. Ecclesiastes definitely seems to be written by Solomon, and it's definitely almost like a downer. It can be construed at least as like a downer, as a lot of the writings are. It's a lot of vanity and vexation of spirit, and what is a profit of man if he does righteousness, but if the person after him takes everything that he's built and is unwise or might be a fool, and then just kind of or just does destroys everything that he made. So what is a profit of man for anything that he does? And the writer of Ecclesiastes states over and over again, or it seems at least he states over and over again, that there's nothing new under the sun, and so everything's already been done. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything is vanity and vexation. What does it matter what you do? It doesn't matter, because eventually you're going to return to dust on the ground, and the things that you built, the person after you might not even build anything with that. And so it's definitely kind of a downer. It does go into the end though. So if you read Ecclesiastes and you read it, it's a lot of it is difficult to kind of understand, especially if you're reading the King James version of the Bible, which I think is the right version to read, because I think that it's a lot better to not understand something than it is to think that you understand something and be wrong. And because then you have to unlearn what you think you've already learned, and that's a lot more difficult than to learn something new, at least in my eyes. But in the end of Ecclesiastes, it talks about, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment, with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So you read Ecclesiastes, and it doesn't really seem like, at least for me when I read it, it doesn't really seem like this is like the kind of the theme of the whole entire thing. But this is kind of the end of it. And there is a little bit of there's like a little bit of Psalm-esque in Ecclesiastes, not so much Proverbs. I mean, there's some I guess there's some Psalm-esque and there's some Prov-esque things in Ecclesiastes, and it's after Psalms, it's after Proverbs, so maybe it's like kind of like a summing up of the matter. And I like this though. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment, with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So for me, like what I tell myself a lot, especially when I'm in like kind of dire straits, it's like, no one can escape judgment and no one can escape reward. And so no one can escape the things that they've done wrong, and no one can escape the things they've done right either. You can't escape your reward. We'll all have to answer for the things that we're doing. And so I don't say that we all have to answer for the things that we've done, because we might have already answered for that. But we'll have to answer for the things that we're doing. At least that's what I believe. So that's something that I kind of tell myself, and I think this kind of sums up the whole matter as well. And obviously Ecclesiastes has more, I would say Ecclesiastes almost certainly has more power than I do as far as the words that I say. The only reason I say almost certainly, because sometimes you can't see who you really are, and nothing really is for certain. But it definitely seems like Ecclesiastes kind of sums it up right here. But I do think that the way that I present it to myself, or at least the way the Holy Spirit presents it to me, is summing up the same idea. And also, sometimes I wonder about, all these people that are before us, they did all the hard work, but we're standing on their shoulders. So is it like up to us to be better in some regards than those that are before us? And because we're standing on their shoulders, and it would be kind of, I don't know, maybe it would be, in some ways, what they did would be in vain if we weren't able to take what they've done and build upon it. And so it's a really difficult thing. It's hard to judge oneself and to see where oneself is, because you want to be humble, but then you also want to be responsible. And I think that the way that it works is that you want to be humble when it comes to being praised or praising yourself, and then you want to be responsible when it comes to when something bad has happened, and you have to be responsible for the sin that you've done. And so you have these two competing factors of both being humble but also being responsible, because you're just a man, but you're also a man. And so you're a man, which is a great thing to be, because you're made in God's image, and so you have responsibility. But then you're also just a man. You're not God, and you're not these other things. And so you need to be humble, and you need to understand that your position in the place, and not to be proud. But there is kind of these competing factors, and so I just think once again, you want to be humble when it comes to praise, but then you want to be responsible when it comes to sin. And so these are the kind of two different factors. So at any rate, so my readings that I had, and so I'm continuing along with the same emotions as the last week of emotions that I have. And then when I start Isaiah 10 next week, then I go back to like what I originally was doing with like kind of the main themes that are inside each of the readings. But through Ecclesiastes, Psalms, and Proverbs, I've picked different emotions and different ideas. Main emotions, like fear of the Lord isn't necessarily emotion, but it's fear. But you want to fear the Lord. And I have that into like it's a different thing. Most of these other ones are just emotions. So Monday I have anger. The Bible talks about being slow to anger. And Ecclesiastes also talks about being slow to anger. I forget the exact verse that's in there, but it definitely seems to be that you want to be slow to anger, and you don't want to be overly upset. And I think for me, like a lot of times I'll kind of depress myself so that I don't get angry, and I can kind of see the situation and be wise about it, because anger has a lot of problems, and you can do a lot of things out of anger that you shouldn't be doing. Rage is really detrimental to those that are around you and to yourself. And so I think that it says slow to anger, but I think that sometimes it's important to be angry. I think that anger has its part, and I don't think that all anger is sin, but being quick to anger is a really big problem. And so that's what I have about anger. And then I have about wrath. And wrath is really interesting, because what's the difference between wrath? What's the difference between wrath and vengeance? And I feel like vengeance is like the carrying out of wrath. Like wrath is like the emotions, and then the going up to it, and the thought of it, of vengeance, before vengeance is implemented. And so is man to have wrath. And so I also, because I think that, so I have justice in here on Thursday. So I think there's a difference between, justice and revenge. And so actually, so Tuesday I have wrath, Wednesday I have revenge, and Thursday I have justice. And so when I think about these things, what's the difference between, revenge and justice? And I think that revenge is for God alone. And I think revenge is like what God carries out on a spiritual level. It's not for us to have vengeance, because it's not for us to carry out judgment on a spiritual level. Now we are to have judgment, we have just judgment, and we're called to carry out judgment, a retribution, or consequences for affairs of man. But we're not here to have consequences and retribution for affairs of spiritual things, because we're not here to judge spiritual things. That's not what man's for. Man needs to stay in his lane and to judge, affairs of man, not affairs of God. And so we are to, and maybe one day we'll be able to, or we'll be called to have revenge and revenge. But right now it's not a man thing to do. We just have to stay in our lane and learn how to deal with, humanly things. And I think that comes with justice. Man is to have justice. And because we want to be able to follow the laws of the land, and somebody has to carry out the retribution or the consequences of those that go against the laws of the land. And so I think it's important for man to have justice, but it's not in man's toolbox to carry out revenge. That's for God's thing to do. So I think there's a difference between justice and revenge. And I think wrath, like I said, I think is the prior action to revenge or justice. Like you have wrath, but until you don't carry it out, once you carry it out, it's like the act of the thought of it or the planning of it is the wrath, and then the carrying out of it is the justice and the revenge. And so Friday I have vanity. And I'm not exactly sure what vanity even means. A lot of it's, everything is vanity and vexation of spirit. And so I think that what the author is portraying, or the author is trying to convey when he's talking about vanity and vexation of spirit, I think that it's just like vanity would be like I just had it. It's like futile. It doesn't really matter. And so I think vanity is like futile. It's like another word for futile. Like it's a little bit different than futile, but it's like it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really affect anything. But you think that you can. So I think futile is like the idea that, you can't affect something, but vanity is the idea that you can affect something or something matters when it doesn't really matter. So you have like this idea, okay, where I can, change a sinner or somebody that doesn't want to be changed. And so it's vanity to think that you can change somebody that doesn't want to be changed because you're not God and you can't affect them the way that you want to. You can try, and you're responsible for the effort, but if you have vanity, then you think that you're responsible for the outcome as well. And I think that it's vanity to try to be able to think that you have the power to turn somebody bad to good, that doesn't want to be turned to good, doesn't like seek that out. So I think that's like kind of the definition of vanity. And so there was a little bit of Isaiah, and I do want to talk about this in Isaiah in chapter 9. It talks about, it says, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and his government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And so, it seems to be that this is talking about Christ. And it says here, he shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. So he should be called the Mighty God. And so a lot of people take and say, okay, that God and Christ are the same because he should be called the Mighty God. For one, I think that these are adjectives. I don't think that they're nouns. I think they're describing. So I don't think that he is as like a noun as he is God, but he will be called like the Mighty God because God gives him power, and God gives him all authority, and so he'll be called this because he has this authority, the authority of God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And so I think that that's why this is referring to Christ, but I don't think this is necessarily a noun. Like he's not the Mighty God. There's only one God, so why would it be the Mighty God? But you can argue that back and forth. And then also he might be called the Mighty God, or it might be called God because people do call him God. Obviously people call him God now. And, there's a lot of people that say that God and Christ are the same, so he will be called as just because he's called it doesn't mean it's true. And also when you're reading Isaiah, there's a lot, when you're talking about the prophecies, it's difficult exactly to know what he's saying about a lot of these different things. Because if you read Isaiah, especially the King James Version, which I think is the correct version, you don't really know what the author is really saying about a lot of these different things with these prophecies. And so it's not what you say, it's the message that you convey. And is God and Christ the same? Are they the same thing? Are they the same entity? I mean, in some ways they have authority, but I don't think they're the same person. I don't think they're the same entity, and I think that's dangerous because if you say God and Christ are the same, then you're saying Christ never existed. And I think that's, in essence, antichrist, because you're saying that Christ never existed. You're saying that only God existed. But could they be the same? I'm not saying that that's not true. It is possible. And just to me, it depends on what do you mean by being the same. But for me in my walk, I do think that they're separate, and I think that, like I said, it's dangerous to say that they're the same. I think that there's more benefits, and it's more wise, and it's more truthful to say that they're not the same than they are the same. And to teach that they are the same is, I think, very unwise as well. But could I be wrong? I definitely could be wrong, and I'm definitely not going to try to bet my soul and say 100% that I'm right about this thing. And so I'm growing. There was a time where in my life where I probably thought that they were the same, or I couldn't really distinguish between the two. But now I'm in a part of my life where I feel like I can distinguish between the two, and I do want to hold fast to this idea. But could I be wrong, and could I grow? And maybe a different time in my life, further in my life, can I go back and be okay? The evidence in my life and the way that God's guided me and the way the Holy Spirit has revealed to me that they are the same, and they should be taught that they are the same. Is that possible? Of course it's possible for me. And so I don't want to say, okay, I know for sure what the answer is, especially something that's other Christians, that people that claim they're Christians at least, are just so, so believe so much that they are the same. And some Christians people say that Christians say that they believe so much that they're different. And so I think that it's just important to always keep growing and to keep an open mind on these things that are professed by some, and they just believe so much in these things. But hopefully everyone's doing okay. That's pretty much what I got for this week. And now we're going to get into the prophets with Isaiah and Jeremiah. And I like the prophets a lot. I like the readings of the prophets. I think that it holds true to a lot of things that are happening today. And I really like, verses like, hide ourselves behind falsehoods. May lies our refuge. Just verses like that I feel like are really applicable today, where I feel like the people around me, the society around me, lies or hides behind falsehoods and makes lies their refugee. And so just verses like that I just really find compelling and comforting and, just relevant to today. But anyway, I hope everyone's doing okay. God bless and happy truth seeking.